So I want to show you how to make first a simple lidded container that actually opens and closes within Fusion. And then obviously we'll do the more advanced modeling next time for your full projects. But today I wanted to show you just how to make a simple lidded container. You can follow along, and then you can either modify this or start from scratch with what you learned. So changing over to Fusion to show you some of the examples. We have simple example here, and this is just on auto color. I can change back to the assigned colors, whatever. This is a obviously rounded box. So it's instead of a box, it's a cylinder. But I can actually click and drag open the surface, and it is a container for a couple or two Oreos. So when I say it must have a modeled object within, yeah, you're responsible for modeling an object, either importing the ring, that's the intention, or if you just really want it to be something else, well, you're responsible for modeling said objects, in this case, an Oreo. Different example, I was on different example, and I just have a section analysis on this. It does not have to be square or cylindrical. It can be, you can use the revolve tool to make a custom profile. This opens and closes as well, clamshell style. Now, the orientation is just for the convenience, but one of the things I want to show you in this, the hinge. It is a simple hinge, in this case with 3 lobes, 2 connecting to one side of the object, 1 connecting to the other side of the object. Now, this example model has a hole through it. We're going to do we're going to model something that's more intended to be printed in place with more of a snap fit that would not require a pin, but that can certainly be an option if you like. But the main thing is it opens and closes and also has some sort of a little hinge or some sort of a little catch. So it wouldn't just be simply snapping closed. If I look at this from the side, you can see this has a simple little model. When I open up the section analysis, you can see that it actually has a little divot in there, something just close enough that would allow the plastic to bend and snap back in place and keep the whole thing closed. So you can see the clearance is just so. Now this one has this inset in here also that would technically make this more watertight. I'm not requiring that. That was just an idea, just a experiment. Mainly, we're looking at something that has, sure, it can be a container. It has a simple hinge. You can make this as complex as you like with many lobes as you like. It needs to have some sort of surface features, be that texture, text, but it also needs to have some sort of a thumb catch, something that would help it to open or stay closed. In this case, it's just like a couple little thumb tabs that you could easily grab onto. Now with this project, this actually houses a ghost frog. And this is simply an imported model from a file sharing website. But in this case, for this model, I want you to actually model the object within. But this is just a simple example of what we're going to do. So to start, let's open a new project. Now, dimensions and things are going to be up to you. I'm going to recommend starting with the sketch. We'll start on the XZ plane, snap in the middle. And for this example, certainly follow along. We're just going to start with a center point rectangle right in the middle. And just for the sake of building this, let's just say, I don't know, 100 by 100. Making it a square, that's okay. All right, that's essentially done. That's just my rectangle. And I say this because if you want to add like fillets, you could do that now. Remember, if I just keep clicking around, don't hit enter, keep clicking around from the sides, I'm going to get an error, but this will allow me to link all of my fillets together. Now, if I click and drag or type in numerically, it changes all of them. Totally up to you. You can add fillets later. This is just an example now. Yeah, I get the warning because I changed the constraints. It's all right. Okay, that's it. Literally start with a sketch, just a flat sketch, what we're going to reference. There you go. Now, eventually we're going to need to make different components, but for now, we can just make them different bodies. So I'm going to extrude, up and down in two separate bodies. So from the top, I don't know, let's go up 15. Doesn't matter, new body. Now it's going to hide my sketch. You can unhide that, but since it's the exact same profile, technically I could just extrude from the bottom also. Do it again, extrude from the bottom. I don't know, let's go down more like -40. Now make sure on the operation, you do not do join. I want two separate bodies. Hit OK. From here, I'm going to hollow this out. To do that, you can add, I'll show you two different ways. Let me hide, unlabel what will be the lid and base. All right. So for the base, what I could do is I could have brought up that original sketch, or if you want this to be more defined, we can start a sketch on that face, take the existing face, and do like an offset of the outline. First, you have to project that, or if you wanted this to be like a custom profile inside, just for the sake of the example, let's put a circle in there. Okay. Finish that sketch. Extrude. Oops. Not that. I want to make sure I select my circle in this case. I'm going to drag it down to cut. Now, one of the things with parametric modeling, if you drag down, you can, one, accidentally go all the way through, which isn't really a big deal, but you can always make it your own dimension. However, what if I want to make sure, if I decide to go back and change anything, because I base this off of a sketch, I want to make sure that I don't have to recalculate things. In other words, the less math I have to do later, the better. So what I'm going to do for my extent type, instead of by distance, I'm going to go to object. I'm going to select the bottom face, which is going to cut it all the way through. But then I'm going to do an offset of, I don't know, let's say like -5. Means it brings it back up 5 millimeters. Hit OK. And I'm going to throw in a section analysis so you can see what I'm looking at here. So now, no matter what I do, that extrusion will always cut 3 millimeters away from the bottom. So what I mean by that is if I wanted to go back and change how far I wanted that bottom to be, instead of 40, I don't know, let's make it 45. Okay. It's going to recalculate, and the depth of my extrusion is always going to be all the way to the bottom, save 3 millimeters back. It's always going to be 3 millimeters away. So that's one of the benefits of doing it this way. The other example is, let's do the lid. And to heck with all of that, just use a shell tool, select the bottom face, let's say 3 millimeter wall, bam. Instant extrusion. And the cool thing about using the offset tool, the shell tool, is before I did that, what if I wanted to round out the top of that? Let's select the top face, and we'll say, I don't know, 5 millimeter fillet. Hit OK. Now when I go back to current, it recalculates, and because the shell tool works like an offset, it also copies and offsets that rounded fillet on the inside. So I don't have to make that copy. So however you want to approach this, it's up to you. If you want to make it a custom inside, use a Sketch Extrude. If you just want to use the shell tool, do that. So I'm going to pause here, let you catch up, make that model, go from there. Okay, so you made your container, you have it on two sides. You have your two sides. I'll just hide the section analysis so we're seeing the whole thing. Cool. Now, again, this is important that it's much easier if you make this all, as usual, smack in the middle of your workspace, right smack in the middle of your environment, however you go about it. All right. So the next step is going to be, I need to make the Excuse me, I need to make the hinge. Now, before I do that though, to make this much easier to work with, I'm going to need to make my separate components to drop this into. So the component tool is over assembly, or first one on assembly, new component, new component. And you can either select things or not. But I'm just going to label this lid. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, you don't have to do this, but it's really easy to accidentally get a little lost. At the bottom of this toolbox, there's a checkbox, activate. If I don't uncheck this, when I hit OK, my whole project ghosted out. And if you look down the project tree, the symbol for my component, which was just a square or a cube, has changed to a little stack of cube symbol. That's the new components. There's more than one component. And the reason for that is it automatic. And then down here, you have the new component, the lid that I just made, and it is active. See the little circle with the dot in the middle? That's active. If I go all the way back to the very top, reactivate the entire project by checking that little symbol there, everything reappears. Now, right now, the component has nothing inside of it other than its origin. If I go to new component to make my other one, we'll say bottom, and I uncheck that, it will keep it out here. The reason I did that, because if you keep both your components at the same level, you won't have as many problems. But if you don't, if you accidentally create your component while another component is active, let's just say component 3, now it will nest that component within that component. And you can very easily kind of just get lost in your own project. Now, the reason you can nest them is if you're making like assemblies. Say you're making a robot arm, and you can put the hand on one component, and then within that component, each one of the fingers is on its own separate component. Stuff to that effect. That's why those are there. So I'm just going to delete that. I don't want that other component. I don't want to get confused. I'm going to reactivate the whole project. And you could just drag and drop bodies. Pretty great. So for the lid, I'm going to drag, drop into the body of the lid, or in the lid component. I just mouse over the lid where it says it, drops it in. Drag and drop for the bottom, same thing. Now, so far, it looks like nothing changed. But when I use Shift-N, Shift November on the keyboard to auto color, it has changed. Let me go back before I did. See, it's all the default coloring. You can see at the very left side of each component, it'll show you the auto color that it's using. That is just there for you to make a little bit more sense of your project. But when I move them into their own components, it reassigns the auto color. So now it has a different color to each one. Now, that makes it pretty easy, because the next step is I have to have separate components to make this, to make the joint tool work. But in order to make the joint tool work, I need a hinge to build this off of. So with the entire project active, not each one of the components, with the entire project active, because it's important that my sketch stays on the outside. I'm going to start a new sketch perpendicular to the project. So now I'm looking at it at the side. Really easy thing to do here is I'm just going to make a super simple hinge. Like this example, from the side. Well, that's, of course, showing a screw, but this is just based off of a circle. That's it. It's a circle, basically a tube. So for my model, I'm going to start a sketch, but instead of using a center circle, I'm going to use a 2-point circle. I'm going to start right smack in the middle. Now, sometimes it's difficult to get to that because it's not wanting to select. So what we're going to do is project again. Press P on the keyboard or create project. And I'm going to copy both objects. I want the top and the bottom. Hit OK. So now if I hid those objects, I have a projection, but they're separate pieces. And now I just have a easier to work with sketch. So circle, 2-point circle, start right in the middle where the hinge will be, and then we'll just draw outward. I don't know, let's say like 10 for now. You can always change this. Okay. Now for reference, I'm going to start a concentric circle in the middle. I don't know, 4, 5, doesn't matter, whatever. Okay. And I need, that'll be what the hinge is, and I need 2 lobes. So I'm going to use a line. Doesn't really matter where. I can start at the top. You can go all the way to the top. You can do it at a tangent, whatever. Do the same for the bottom. Doesn't really matter where, and doesn't really matter where. This is kind of one of those, yeah, that looks about right. If you want these lines to match, or better yet, to be at proper tangent, we're going to use a tangent constraint. Select the tangent constraint on Sketch, select the line I want to be a tangent, and then the circle that I want it to be a tangent to. It resets the line. It stays where it was down here, but it resets where it touches the circle. Same thing for the top. Select the line, then select the circle. It just resets it. You have a little tangent symbol. If you want, you can do it at the top too, since I have this rounded. Select there. It shouldn't change anything. Yep, because it was already smack in the middle, but now it's both in the center and at a tangent. And that's it. So a circle, hit escape to get out of that. So a circle, basically with 2 triangles. That's literally it. That is all the hinge is going to be. Finish sketch. Now I'm going to unhide the components. There we go. So you can see that's all I'm doing. It's just a circle based off of right at the middle where the 2 halves meet, and a triangle for the top, and a triangle for the bottom, or whatever. It's up. You can go straight across if you want. Totally up to you. Now, I'm going to extrude these, but I'm going to extrude these with the object in place, or sorry, with the component active. So I'm going to do the lid first. Well, let's do the bottom. No reason, I just chose that. Okay. So I'm going to select extrude, but because my sketch, let me make sure I relabel that. Hang on. My sketch for that, my hinge profile, is outside of both of these components. It's on the whole project component. That means I can access it easily. So I activate the bottom of my project, my base of my container, hit extrude. I'm going to select the circle and the bottom triangle. Direction, I want it to go both sides symmetrically. You can just drag this out if you want. But see how it's activating and it's automatically joining with the bottom. We'll make it even. We'll make that 20. It is going to join, bottom of the toolbox, join. And because I have the bottom component active, the bottom is both literally the bottom component on my project tree and is labeled bottom, I will have it connected. So I hit OK. There we are. If I reactivate the whole project, now you see that has connected to the bottom of the container. Now I need to do the lid. Let me unhide that hinge. I'm going to activate the lid. This one you have to do twice. So I'm going to hit extrude. If you need to, hide the bottom for a moment. I want the circle and I want the top triangle. But I need to unhide the bottom because instead of starting at the profile plane, which would just extrude right there, I want this to start instead at an object. So the exact opposite way we made the recess inside the bottom, start an object, and I'm going to select the face that's facing me of that hinge. And we'll just make that like 10. I don't know. We'll keep it just even numbers. See how because I have the lid component active and I started at the face rather than where the sketch starts from, and operation is join, which automatically happened, it locks to the top. Great. Do it again. Orbit around. Repeat. Extrude. I need the little circle. And I need that lobe. Direction. Yep. Start profile plane object. Select the other side. And now we just want to go -10 because it's going the opposite direction. Still have the hit lid active. Join. Good. That's it. Reactivate the project. Now you have them automatically joined Just going to hide that sketch. Automatically joined. I've got the base and the lid. So let me save that. Give you all a chance to work on that. All right. So I know we had to I misjudged time, but I just want to finish up this model so that way you can review this later and work on it on your own time. All right. So for the sake of simplicity, it is a little bit easier just to make these hinges hollow. And I'll show you just how to model a pin. We'll do the snap fit one later because it just takes a couple extra steps. But I want to show you how you can now add your joint to this project. So let me hide the profile. All right. Now, what you want to do first, reactivate the whole project if you haven't already. Make sure you're not on like hinge or lid or bottom or anything like that. All the way to the top, checkbox, activate the whole project. Now, we don't need a pin or anything like that to start it, but we did need these faces to match. Now, to use the joint tool, you have to have two different objects, bodies, in two different components. It works off of the different components. As I mouse over the joint tool, you can see specifically it works off of components, not just bodies. That's an extremely important detail. So I'm going to select the joint tool. The defaults you can see the toolbox has two different options, the position and motion. Position, obviously, we'll put it there first. Now, you have a couple of options. You see as I mouse over things, there's all kinds of stuff starts getting selected. Now, if you want this to be more of like where it's supposed to be, we can mouse over and you can see that I'm actually selecting right in the middle. If I turn on section analysis, you can even see that it's right there also. You do not have to have section analysis active for this to work. Just a thing there. You could also use the other option on here, simple selection or between two faces, which is literally between two faces. It's up to you if you want to use that. It might be easier to do that for the top. Don't know. But main thing is what you select first is what will move. What you select second is what will be moving against. So we want to make the lid the thing that will move. So I'm going to hide the bottom and I want to select in here. Now, you can technically just select on the edge, and that's all right. Now, when I mouse over here, you can see, like, because I need a shared space where both of these are intersecting, or, sorry, abutting, and that's right there in between. So to get to that point, it's easier to just hide the bottom. Now, when I go to mouse over that center, the snaps work a lot better than they used to. But if you're having difficulty selecting a point that's literally in space in the center of this tube, what you can do is mouse over the surface you want, press and hold Control, and that locks your selection to only being able to select anything on that plane. So now I can select right there, and the lid ghosts out. That's okay. Unhide the bottom, and I can select the exact same spot. If I hide the lid, exact same spot, having difficulty selecting, so mouse over the surface, press and hold Control, locks it there. Unhide the lid. Great. Now we're going to switch to the other tab, Motion. Now there's a variety of different ones. We're going to use Revolute. Rigid is for if you're like gluing these together. You can preview them. Rigid just shakes and gives you anxiety. But use the drop-down tab, select Revolve, and now it's going to revolve around. If you got this mixed up and accidentally selected the bottom first, you can use this flip tool and you'll be okay, and it'll just automatically change, or just redo the thing. It's whatever you want. Now, obviously, we don't want this to clip through the project, but that's okay for now. We'll set the motion limits in a moment. Hit OK. Save. Joint added. Now, I showed you before, you can click and drag this, click and drag the lid, and it'll open and close. However, if I do this now on our project, it's going to move everything. course, I said that, and now it's not moving at all. So, oh, weird. Now it's opening and closing the bottom. Huh. Don't know why that happened. All right, well, let's reset that, especially since it was working fine before. That is extremely odd. So let's go back into the joint tool. It creates a new one. Excuse me. It creates a new one on the project tree. And now it starts a new folder called relationships. It used to just be joints. So more stuff to go into. To edit this, I mouse over Revolute and click there. It's so weird that when I click and drag it's opening the bottom, but on Revolute it's doing the top or doing the top. So I don't know. But we want to set the limits. Now you can either activate these, and then either you can activate it and either drag these little flags, or you can do it manually, adding in manually. If I hit preview limits, now it's going to open and close. Now, of course, I don't want that. I need one of these to be 0. There we go. So now it will only open and close that much. If I flip that, now that's definitely not the way I want that to work. So the first one should be 0, and the other one could be whatever you want. 80, 180, whatever. Now it opens all the way. Hit OK. That is super weird. I have no idea why it keeps swapping those. Something is wrong with this. But all right, so we have those. Now the one thing we need to do still is, normally this would just move all over the place. Oh, I see, because it automatically anchored that. Okay, that's okay. Normally what we'd need to do, we would mouse over bottom, right click, and I want to pin that. So I'm literally like pinning it in place. That would lock it there. Now the problem is that for some reason the lid got grounded. So that little anchor symbol on there, I need to get that away off of there. I'm gonna right click, unground from parent. Now it works properly. And if I had not pinned the bottom, let me unpin it, what was supposed to have happened, or what would usually happen, now it clicks and drags everything all around. So you need to have one of them locked in place. Now, when I did that, you noticed if you look at the upper right-hand corner, 2 new symbols popped up. When you move stuff around, there's capture position, which means, and this works with when you're working with the joints, if you move something to a new position and you want it to stay there, that's the default setting, you select capture position. If you select revert, it's like Control Z or Command Z. It just plops it right back where it was. All right, so right click bottom, pin. There we go, opens and closes. That's really what we want out of that. Now, I showed you that I wanted to, and let me save that. Joint limit and pin. Okay. So I showed you this, and the intent was to make a model that had these joint pieces built in. But honestly, for today, let's just make them apart. So what we can do in this case, let's just literally model a pin. I'll go to create, and I'm just going to make a cylinder. I'm going to mouse over this surface here. If I'm trying to select on that plane, remember first you have to select the plane, and then if I mouse over, it's going to automatically find center there. And let's just drag that to where it is, 4 millimeters. And I'm going to drag this pin all the way through. Or, no, this one doesn't have that option. So we'll just drag it all the way through, and let's make it fit. But make sure you do not select join. Make sure it's new body. And if I had joined, it was going to try and match it with the bottom object. But now, because my whole project is active, makes that little pin there. And you can, of course, add like a little head to it. So let's hide that. And I'm just going to add another cylinder. Or remember, if you right click, you can repeat the object or the last tool. Put it in the center. I don't know. Let's just put a little head on it. Let's do like 6, and then I don't know, 6 and 6, 6, 5. Join. So now it's just literally like a little pin. Okay. And there you go. That's a super simple container. It opens and closes. This case, it has a pin in place. We will make this model more effective later. But there you go. Practice, play with it. Do a test piece, make a test piece. You could hollow it out however you like. If you want to extrude, sketch and extrude, that's fine. If you want to use shell, that's fine. Make sure the shell happens before you make the hinge. Otherwise, it will try to shell with that hinge built into it. So however you want to work, totally up to you. Make a simple box, figure out how to add the hinge, add the joint tool, go from there. Think from there. Don't forget to save. And that's it. So thank you very much. Good luck with it. Let me know if you have questions.